for me personally, I think everyone around me has something this is very cheesy, I can learn from everyone around me. I think that's the most important part of sisterhood, is that you have someone's back, they have your back, so that when you fall, there's someone to catch you, or there's someone to support you or push you even further. I think that was the most important part of sisterhood. And if I were to summarize the podcast, I would say that the most important message is to help another girl if you can. Form a bond with them, form sisterhoods, form communities.
Today we will hear from a young woman who went to GTU in 2017 and was part of the first mentoring program that they also offered. And today she's a student. And again, I'm curious to hear how GTU changed her life. What did she learn, if anything? And how does she see the world today? And what can we learn from her and from her generation for our future? Like I said, we have today yet another young lady who attended GTU. And like all the previous guests, I'm really curious what happened at GTU that changed her life. And that will be more or less my first question. Hello, Ariel. Why did you go to GTU and how did it change you?
Hi, Anya. Thank you for inviting me. And GTU did play a really big role in my life. I think in general, in the development of my wokeness and feminism, if you put it that way. And also just because it displayed a sort of sisterhood. I was pulled into GTU by other friends, other girls from my school who were the original batch of GTU who attended the first sessions, and they told me it was a wonderful opportunity and I just simply have to go. And I went in 2017 and with a group of amazing girls, I think it was 30 of us. And that was about the first time I experienced sisterhood in that kind of style, because it was a space for us where we can demonstrate whatever we wanted to, and we can just express very freely.
Now so now you're 21. So you were how old when you attended GTU?
2017, it was 5 years ago exactly, I think.
So, okay. When you talk about sisterhood, that's a curious word, which I don't hear very often. Sometimes, yes. What exactly, or how do you define sisterhood? What do you mean by you experienced sisterhood?
I think sisterhood is less as we normally would interpret it, something like, hey, we all buddy together and, get close in the aspect that we know each other's gossips, but more like we support each other. So that, I think that's the most important part of sisterhood, is that you have someone's back, they have your back, so that when you fall, there's someone to catch you, or there's someone to support you or push you even further. I think that was the most important part of sisterhood. And the other part was that not only do they support you on your journey to the future, but also they don't judge you when you make a mistake. Rather, they cheer you on. And I remember being so apologetic when I first attended GTU. I would say sorry at the tiniest thing. And then there would be girls around me, very curious, asking me, why are you apologizing? You're not doing anything wrong. And I think that was something very important that I experienced. And from then on, I apologized less and less. And not to say that apologies are not important, but we shouldn't apologize at every little detail. And I think that was very important, that they supported me in making mistakes and learning from them.
What part in you needed awakening or needed strengthening, that you had the courage, and I call it courage, to say, okay, is that something actually I need to apologize for, or something I don't need? What inside changed?
I think it's the aspect that you always emphasize a lot, which is the feeling of confidence. I think how I got confidence was when the girls cheered me on to become more entitled to the world, because I felt like a guest when, especially coming from a East Asian country, that you don't feel like you're in the society. You're serving the society rather than being an individual who can control yourself in the society. So when they asked me, why are you apologizing? I cannot actually tell, because I just feel like something is not wrong and it should be my fault. But if they told me it's not something you can control and actually this is not part of your duty to make everything right, then I feel more controlled or more confidence to roam around in this world.
I like what you said, you feel more entitled now. That's also a lovely word. And at the same time, it has two sides to it. Now, I also know the generation younger than you, who is very often being told or being seen as feeling too entitled. You know, they always feel entitled to get this, get that, and the other. Now, how do you make sure that feeling entitled, kind of like that beautiful feeling of saying, well, I deserve the best and I deserve to be here and I deserve to be heard and to have that beautiful abundant life, doesn't switch into, well, being a brat, to be honest?
I totally understand your concern, and I think it's just we on our way to become entitled. At least for me, it's finding a middle ground, because I think maybe for some children here, they started from a very liberal society where it encouraged them to be very confident about everything they say. Then they're from another extreme. And when I'm from this extreme, we kind of need to move to the middle where we care for a community. So for example, in the sisterhood of GGU, I wouldn't go around demanding everyone to meet my expectations, and that would be a brat-like behavior. But rather than, I feel that I can maneuver, express my ideas, but at the same time take in what other people are contributing to this conversation or in this sphere, then it becomes confidence, let's say. Like, probably entitled, this word in English has a different meaning in different contexts.
It's beautiful how you describe, you know, coming together and actually not expecting the other one to meet your expectations or have the same opinion, but rather being curious about the other one and being curious about their view of the world. So I really love that. Now, Ariel, you had mentioned you're coming originally from an East Asian country. Now, you're not living there. Where do I reach you right now? Where are you sitting when we recorded?
I am currently in the Netherlands. So okay. Yeah, I'm from Germany, but I was born in China, and now I study in the Netherlands, just to switch up the countries a bit.
Just to make it a little bit interesting.
Exactly.
What we've also noticed in the world is that tolerance towards other cultures, about other ethnicities, belief systems, religious beliefs, whatever, I have the impression it's withdrawing. It's getting smaller and smaller. How, in your experience, in your personal experience, how have you seen it? Being born in China, you said, but being German and now living in the Netherlands, how do you get that all under one head?
Actually, I didn't think much when I first came to Germany. I was about 9 or 10 years old. So as a child, it was fascinating. Especially I moved like a quarter of Earth to get to Germany, and everything was so new. The air was fresh, the sky was blue. And I think the identity crisis came when we moved into teenager.
Mhm.
So because especially as a girl, they would want to pin you down. They would say, so well, are you Chinese now? Are you German now? Or what do you feel like you are? And I think I personally I didn't have this confusion that I was a third culture kid, but because there is a need to pin you to a culture, that it caused me to be more anxious about it. But I think now I just roam around whatever you want to take me as.
Let's just put that a little bit into context and what that also could mean. The last sentence you said, whatever you want me to be, I can be. Does that mean you're losing yourself all the time when talking to somebody?
Not really. I think cultural identity is not as important for me because I feel like, as I would hope as a supporter of integration, that we stop pinning people down to a specific stereotype, that we take them for their personality. Because I think whether I come from Germany or China, or even, as a Dutch student, I think it doesn't really contribute much to my personality, probably my experience in the world, but I don't think it's something that's defining for me where I come from.
I mean, I can share a little bit of my background. I always say I was born in a country that doesn't exist anymore. And then I moved to the UK, moved back into the country that wasn't the country anymore that I was born in, and now I'm living in Switzerland. And when people ask me about my nationality, it's really curious because, well, I could say, well, I have a German passport, but do I feel German? No, I don't. Because it's a different country. It's not where I grew up in. So it's interesting that you are describing it as, well, it's just part of the culture, but it doesn't define me. Did I understand that right?
I think so. I think it's not as important as we might assign it to be. I think this cultural identity can be fluid. There are so many third culture kids around me, and I think it will be very hard for them to pin down which one they would like to choose.
Let me just go down that aisle a little bit. Why do you think is it then so complicated in the world to get along?
That's a very big and interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can look at it from many different lenses. I think in general, perhaps what I experience a bit around me is that probably we do build up some defense against things that we're not familiar with. And social media might amplify that defense because we're not familiar with, for example, I'm not familiar with the history of Chile. And if someone comes with a totally different ideology, my first reaction would be that, oh no, that is not what I'm used to, and that is not something acceptable to me. And social media amplified that aspect of the things that we do not accept, and in a way that would cause conflict because you're not trying to get along, finding a common ground, etc.
Taking that, how would you, if you could change it, how would you change the world in a way that we get along, that we don't put so much emphasis on the culture identity, but I would even go further on what you said, if it's different, it's not familiar, and I would like just to have around me people who are just like me, and everything else I reject. How can we learn to get along better, to overcome that part of saying, well, just because you're different, I still can get along with you?
I think it takes many different steps. I think the most important for me would be shaping the mentality. And one thing that helps me a lot is to think the world is really big. Whenever I get caught up in a thought of, oh, I'm failing this, I'm never as good as other people, or, oh, this person is excelling much better than me. And then I look into the world, or I looked on LinkedIn, and I see so many opportunities, then I think the world is so big and we have so many opportunities to mingle and to talk to other people. And that would be the second point. I think talking to other people is very important. Although I think I myself have lost that in COVID times, but I think it's very important that we engage in conversations with people, because the way we don't just talk with words, and psychologically that's a very small part of how we communicate, but rather how we express ourselves physically, or what our expressions are, what our hand gestures are doing. And these give friendly signals in most of the time, because I don't think many people would engage in a conversation to start a conflict. So talking would be a way to resolve it. And lastly, this might help a lot for me, is reading. I think different books, they bring you conversations that you might not reach. And I've read a lot of books of the US, although I have personally never met anyone who is completely from the US. So I think that helped me learn more about it than what social media portrays.
Ariel, you said you're in the Netherlands. What are you actually doing there right now?
Oh, I'm studying in the university. I'm in a second year of my bachelor for a bunch of humanities subjects. So if I list it out, it's politics, philosophy, economics, and history.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And that leads you where? I mean, where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go?
I really like studying government systems. So I think I would like to work for existing systems, however flawed they are. I do recognize that they're not perfect. But for me, I am less of a entrepreneurial person, because I just don't think I have that much of a great idea for innovative stuff. But I do like to work with different systems that are already existing, maybe improving them, maybe advancing them, using them to achieve different things. So I think politics is a great part of what I want to do in the future. Not necessarily become a politician, but somewhere in the government.
Yeah, I can just hope that you can make those changes that you want to make, overcoming, for example, those cultural differences that we see. You spoke a little bit about what GGU did for you in that summer program, but I do know you also were lucky enough to do the mentoring program. Can you, for somebody who doesn't understand how that works, what is the mentoring program?
The mentoring program is where GGU connects an alumni, or I don't think necessarily an alumni, but any girl that's interested to develop their leadership, and connect them with a woman who is already in a leadership role. And we can come up with a project together and develop on that, or you learn skills from this leader. It's however you want it to be, but you're guided by someone who already has the resources and power and experience in that position.
I think that's the dream of every woman out there, to have a mentor like that on their side. What was the project you worked on, and what did you learn in that mentoring program?
I think for me, I approached the program in a way of surprise me with who I will get. So I worked with a mentor who is very familiar with entrepreneurial aspects, and that is perfect for me, because that is something I absolutely lack. And we worked on a lot of different skills, and I think mainly the main skill I would take away from her is we worked on how to present ourselves, and the psychological workings behind how humans present themselves, or how we present to other people, or how we innovate and present our ideas. And I think that is our project, is just to simply delve into the psychiatrics behind that and how we do it technically.
That is pretty amazing. Now I'm going to put you on the spot, Ariel. Having had, that mentoring, how do you present yourself today here on the podcast that you wouldn't have had done before?
Oh, I would say everything. I think from my voice to my hand gestures, you might see sometimes, to these pauses I make when I think they're both credited to my mentor bring me through to how to present myself. I think it also came at a really great time during Corona, because that's when we all had our online lessons and all of our public speaking were also online, and this way it was a really good practicing ground, because whatever I learned from her over Zoom, I could directly apply it to lessons. And yeah, that kind of imprinted in my mind how to present these different skills.
Okay, give us a couple of tips. You know, you were lucky enough to do those courses. And if somebody hasn't done that, if somebody your age, a little bit younger, what can they change in their gesture, in their body language, in the way they talk, in those pauses they make to appear, because that's really what it is, more confident?
Oh, I do think a lot of younger people are doing much better than I am. I think the main part to take away is that when expressing ourselves, we do use probably, I think the number was 30% of what we actually speak. So a lot of it comes down to the body language. But another important thing is that we don't float in our voice. And a good training I did was read books out loud, because that helps you to register the word on the book while you're reading it out, and you should not make mistakes. So that is the goal, but you can make mistakes. So in the end, you register what the book says, you present it to your audience if you publish it, and also you train how clear your voice is.
What about those pauses, those rhetorical, well-placed pauses?
I think I still need to work on them, but the rule is that whenever I cannot think of a word, I pause. Because I also tried doing a podcast with my friend, and you would know in this process that when you stutter or say a lot of uhs and ums, or you correct your sentence, it will be very hard to edit. So the best way to do is to pause and think, and then speak what you want to speak.
I like that. I like that very much. Ariel, let's just look a little bit into the future. You said you don't see yourself as an entrepreneur. You see yourself more as working within the given structures, maybe within politics, helping the existing structures, the existing framework to improve themselves. But what is really your, I wouldn't say vision, but more the ambition? Where is your passion, where you say, God, I really, really, really would want that to be changed?
Oh, so much things. But I think the most...
Okay, give me the top 5.
No, yeah, well, we have the climate crisis, we have, no, but I think the most important thing for me is that I do want more women in power. And that is my main goal. Like wherever I go, if I make it to a great position in politics, if I don't, but I think it is very important for me personally to pull another girl up or pull other girls up. And I think that is what we need to change the most, because politics now, or our society now, I think is mostly shaped by men's rules.
Yeah.
Or historical men's rules. And perhaps when we bring in new perspectives that will change the structure in general, not just equality in a sense that we have more representation, but in a sense that the structure, the ideology we currently work with, they might change, and they might change for the better.
What do you think can we women bring to the table that is useful?
That also depends on in which context, but I do think a very important thing is we women feel different kinds of emotions. We feel a wider spectrum of emotions, and that is a very important leadership skill for me, because leadership is not just let's march onto the field and defeat the opponent, but rather that you understand your team, you can empathize with them, and you can use the different skills that you understand from your teammates or your subordinates or your partners to strive for a better goal. And I think women on that front has a strategic advantage that we have a wider spectrum of emotions that we can empathize with them.
Do you really think that we women have a wider spectrum of emotions?
Oh, that is psychologically proven.
So what you're saying is men are feeling a certain number of emotions and women have more?
I'm not a psychiatrist, but from what I remember reading was that we have different subcategories of the general terms of emotion that we describe, and women have more layers to them than on average of a man. But that, of course, can vary from country to country, from people to people. But in general, I think that could be something that is useful. Of course, there are a lot of different things that women can bring to the table, of course.
Mm-hmm. So passion is to bring, and that I love, because I think that's one of the key things, having women in places of power, because that would change a lot. And what you also said I liked is like you want to be in a position where you can uplift other women, where you can basically help them up the ladder, to have a career, to have their chance, to have their seat at the table. What main strength, what main characteristics, what main skills do you have to be at that table?
I think in general, I'm very goal-oriented, and I plan out my life, even though they go in different directions. But at every stage, every year, I plan out what I want to achieve, what I want to do. And I always have this might help me, this might not help other people, but I always have a goal that I know I have about 40% chance of reaching. And that's like the idealistic goal, and I work towards that. And if I don't achieve it, I still gain the experience on the way of achieving it, which the 40% is like my maximum level of capacity. But then on the way, I gain the rest of the knowledge that I can get through the experience. And that I think this journey is probably something I think is suitable to reach my goal in the future.
I love that technique to have one goal that's nearly not achievable. I'm curious. I was teaching the other day, and I don't know, are you familiar with the Wheel of Life?
Could you remind me of it?
The Wheel of Life is basically a model where you have a circle and you have basically different parts of your life. Those could be a part health, career, emotional life, relationships, whatever you want in there. And then basically from the center to the outside of the circle, you have just sort of like lines saying, okay, in the center, well, I'm absolutely unsatisfied. It's nil, it's nothing, and if you have all the way out to the circle, it couldn't be any better. It couldn't be any better. One of the exercises I do is like that. I have sort of like, okay, what's the status quo right now? Draw the circle, draw your sectors, your areas, color in how satisfied you are in these particular areas, to find out in which area you might be able or willing or curious to improve something. Now, what do you say to somebody who says, well, I'm happy with all areas. There's nothing to improve.
Well, I do admire their confidence.
That's a good answer.
To have that.
That's a good answer.
I think I did encounter this problem. Well, I wouldn't call it a problem. I did encounter this scenario before, that I have friends who says I am perfect, and I love that they think they're perfect. But if they want to achieve something further, it could help to find a role model or someone in your life, because for me personally, I think everyone around me has something this is very cheesy, I can learn from everyone around me, but they will always have something that they do better than that I don't do. And probably this will help, that if you look at an actual example of maybe this person is better at sticking to their plan and than you are, then yeah, there is a goal to work on.
I like that. I like that. And I don't find it cheesy, not at all, because it's how we learned as humans, how we learn, how babies learn. Ariel, at the end of my podcast, there's always the same question, and we have reached the end, although I would love to talk to you longer. But the question is, has there been a question that you would have wanted me to ask and I didn't? You could now answer it. Or how would you summarize the past roughly 30 minutes for somebody who's listening?
I think you have asked more than comprehensive questions altogether. And if I were to summarize the podcast, I would say that the most important message is to help another grow if you can. And not help in terms of, this will also help, not help in terms of donating, but rather form a bond with them, form sisterhoods, form communities where girls take on leadership roles, or that they get more important say, or that they get equal say or more important say in things. And that would definitely improve the dynamic of your community now, or of your environment. And I think girls who usually don't speak, sometimes they have a lot of things going on in their mind, and they have a lot of different analysis, and we can definitely learn from that. And they have probably skills that if you reflect on yourself, you wouldn't notice, but if you ask them, they will tell you something amazing.